Hey everybody, it's great to see you today. Welcome to Living Power. This is your online Bible study where we're walking through the Bible in a year. We are back today in the book of Proverbs. We studied them a couple weeks ago and then went back to the history books, and now we're back in Proverbs, and I'm going to explain in just a minute why the authors of the chronological Bible placed these Proverbs right here. But before we do that, I just need to mention it has been so hot lately here where I am. I'm wondering if it's been hot where you are. And even my cats sometimes like to participate in the videos, and they are sacked out on the bed under a cool fan. And, I told them we were starting today, and Caesar just looked up at me like, you've got to be kidding. It is so hot. So I hope you're staying cool. I hope you're enjoying your summer. Today we are going to look at the Hezekiah collection. And the reason why these Proverbs, chapter 25 to 29, is called by some the Hezekiah collection is because Hezekiah was the king of Judah, the southern kingdom at the time, and he asked for these proverbs, which had been written by Solomon, to be taken out of the treasury. Evidently they were stored, probably written on a scroll somewhere in the very back of the temple, most likely. And can't you just imagine the people going through what must have been scroll after scroll after scroll, which were their books at the time, looking for these proverbs that Solomon wrote. Can't you just hear them down in the basement of the temple saying, now where did they put these scrolls? I wonder how long it took them to find them. The prophets that were alive at this time were Isaiah, Hosea, and Micah. We have studied those books, some of them so far. And isn't it interesting that the chronological Bible really helps us understand that all of these people were living at the same time period? When the people went into the temple to get these scrolls that Solomon must have written hundreds of years ago, it was kind of like them writing a biography about someone that had long been dead that had written something. So it'd be kind of like today if we publish another man's manuscript after he's long gone. That's kind of what happened today to Solomon. So they came out of the king's records, and we're calling them the Hezekiah collection because he collected them and put them all together, and aren't we thankful that he did? We believe these were written by Solomon today. Now, we have a couple of chapters, 25 to 29, that we read, and I want to just give you an outline about these because each of the 5 sections has a particular theme, and let me share them with you. Chapter 25, verse 1 to 15, discusses how to deal with the king. And this is actually true in our day if you look at it from the perspective that you're working with someone that's maybe high up in a corporation or on a board, or someone that is has a lot of responsibility, big span of authority, and you just wonder what's appropriate. So when I saw the title, How to Deal with the King or a Governmental Authority, I reread this section and it made just a little bit more sense. It was easier to apply it to today. So don't you just love verse 6 and 7? I'm here at the beginning of chapter 25. I love this one. It says, don't demand an audience with the king or push for a place among the great. It's better to wait for an invitation to the head table than to be sent away in public disgrace. I don't know. I just love that one. It just allowed me to, say, I just don't have to push for my own rights. It's okay just to wait and let go and let God. That's kind of what that said to me today. I also like verse 15. Patience can persuade a prince, and soft speech can break bones. Isn't it interesting how sometimes we think we have to be loud and boisterous and make sure people see us and make sure we're heard kind of stand up for our rights. But here the proverb says, you can say a lot and you can get a lot done by taking another approach in being patient and perhaps using soft speech instead of loud speech. Well, prudence, discretion, and patience are kind of the three themes that I got out of this section. Now let's move on to the next section. It's also in Proverbs chapter 25, verse 16 to 27. This section has been called the how to get along with other verses. And certainly we run into difficult situations with other people, interpersonal conflicts in our life. It doesn't matter who you are. You're going to run into some difficulties with other people. So let's see what this wisdom has to say about dealing with that. I love verse 27. Now I am still in Proverbs 25, verse 27. It's not good to eat too much honey, and it's not good to seek honors for yourself. I love that. It just gives me such a sense of relief in feeling like, it's better off to let God give us honor than it is to seek honors for ourselves. If we were in a classroom face to face, I would ask each of you to share which one is your absolute favorite. And as we go through, I would love for you to think about that and maybe even post that on the comment blog today. In which of these 5 sections that we're going to talk about did you just really feel convicted, or did one just pop out at you that you really enjoyed, and which one was that? There seems to be a contradiction here in chapter 26, verse 4 and 5. Did you notice that? It says in verse 4, don't answer the foolish arguments of fools, or you will become as foolish as they are. And in verse 5, it seems to say exactly the opposite. Be sure to answer the foolish arguments of fools, or they will become wise in their own estimation. So when I saw that, I said, well, I'll probably need to study that just a little bit. And I looked into a commentary, and basically all it said there was that, yes, the scholars recognize there's a contradiction here. It's probably not a mistranslation. It was meant to be that way. That perhaps these proverbs were meant to be guidelines and not the rules. And that one verse can apply in one situation and the other verse can apply in a totally different situation. So we seem to see that there's some gray area here to living. Now, I'm flipping over the page to another verse in the same section. I really love verse 17. Interfering in someone else's argument is as foolish as yanking a dog's ears. It's kind of funny to think about yanking a dog's ears. Don't you just love the way that this translation puts some of these phrases? You really can understand them. They're in today's English. So this section here, verse 16 to 27, we're in chapter 25, the how to get along with others section can really be summarized. Avoid strife, don't wear out your welcome, be sensitive to others, and avoid gossip and lies. There are a couple verses that cover each of these things. Let's move on to the third section, chapter 25, verse 28, and it goes through chapter 26, verse 28. This is our third section today, and this is a section that's called Difficult People. So it's kind of a continuation of the last, but it's just a little bit different. And basically, to sum up this section, it talks about lack of self-control and how that can get us into trouble. Dogmatic self-assurance. I love that. I had to look up the word dogmatic again. And basically it says that dogmatic is when you are positive of your opinion with someone and you're expressing that opinion in arrogance, which your opinion may not actually be true. And I just thought, wow, dogmatic self-assurance is certainly something that is not to be pursued. And I was in a meeting this week, actually, and this verse or this concept came to life because there was a person in the meeting that was absolutely so sure of themselves and put someone else down publicly. It was a little, one of those meetings where you're uncomfortable because you can see how uncomfortable it must be for this other person, and they were trying to defend themselves, but yet the other person that was sort of going after them would not relent. And it just made me think about this. Wow, maybe we should, the next time we're expressing our opinion in a meeting or to our spouse or in a family situation, whatever it is, just make sure so that you're not dogmatic. You would make sure that you don't express yourself in arrogance, being so sure of yourself that you're right that maybe you're not right. Now in this section it also talks about laziness, provoking conflict, and it gives us warnings about flattery. The more and more I read the Proverbs, the more and more I realize that we really should be specific in our speech. Let our yes be yes, our no be no, and not to flatter someone, because Proverbs is revealing to me that flattery is a form of deceit and lies. And I'm convicted in that area, and I see that we have some warnings in this section. Flattery, saying pleasant words to people that we dislike, spreading rumors. There's even a verse here I'm trying to find about hatred hidden in a kiss. And if you give me just a second, here it is. It's chapter 26, verse 24. People may cover their hatred with pleasant words, but they're deceiving you. They pretend to be kind, but don't believe them. And it just reminds me that we should be so pure in our speech and so pure towards one another that we're not seeking attention for ourselves so much, and that we're not trying to flatter another person to, in essence, get something for ourselves. So I just love spending some time in these Proverbs because they really make you think, don't they? They really make you think about things. Now the fourth section, chapter 27, verse 1 to 7, could be entitled Faithfulness in Love. And it really talks about accepting comments from a friend, and a true friend that will help you. And a true friend will tell you what you need to hear and not always tell you the things that you want to hear. Nagging irritates. There was something in here about nagging. Oh, here it is. Verse 15. A quarrelsome wife is annoying as a constant dripping on a rainy day. I don't like that proverb too much. I don't know about you, but I don't like that one so much. I do love 27 verse 2. Let someone else praise you, not your own mouth, a stranger, not your own lips. Hard to do sometimes, but the benefits are definitely greater if you do that. I have experienced that in my own life. And then the last section, chapter 28, verse 1 to 29:27, we talk about the need for the law. And when I read that, I thought, that's an interesting way to title this section. But if you think about it, there's 4 things that this section covers. Justice comes from God. The law is needed because people oppress other people. We recognize the reward for hard work, and that's talked about in this section. And God's economy is different from the world's economy. God's economy says that we give to the poor, and when we do that, He'll make sure that we have all that we need. That, to me, is the best investment plan that you can have, is when you give to the poor, because the Bible says when you give to the poor, you're actually giving to God, and He's the one that will repay you. I like that kind of an investment. And so I want to leave you today with chapter 29, verse 18. When people do not accept divine guidance, they run wild. But, love this last part, whoever obeys the law is joyful. And have you ever thought about that? Do you need joy in your life? If you need joy in your life, there are promises over and over again in this book that says joy comes from obedience. It doesn't come from running from God or trying to go a different way or certainly pursuing our own interests and doing our own thing. True joy and peace is your inheritance as a child, a son or daughter of the King, of God Himself. Don't give up your joy because you refuse to follow in the ways of the Lord. Even Jesus said when He was here, if you love me, you will obey me. And that concept of obedience and following the law and living a righteous life set apart. Holy doesn't mean perfect. Holy means set apart. And that's what you and I are called to do. So, don't give up your joy. Seek the Lord and seek to put Him first in everything that you do. And I want to ask you today, if you feel comfortable to put a comment on the blog, which proverb of these 5 sections was your absolute favorite today? Which one are you going to cling to, meditate on, think about, and which one resonates with you today? I would love to know that. Well, has been my pleasure to be with you today. We're going to continue in Proverbs for the next couple of days, and tomorrow we don't read about Proverbs from Solomon. We read about a brand new character for the next 2 days, and you'll want to tune in again tomorrow and the next day to read about those. So I hope that you stay cool this summer, and blessings to you and your family until we meet again. Shalom.